Pre-war, Japan is in control of Korea after they invaded Korea, which was controlled by the Joseon dynasty in the Sino-Japanese War, 1894–1895, which was right next to the Russian Empire, ruled by Nicholas II. In 1897, Russia occupied, leased from China, the Liaodong Peninsula and built the Port Arthur fortress. Japan saw this as an anti-Japan move, and many Russian troops were accompanying the railroad building of Russia to Port Arthur, which didn't help the cause. Russia also began building railroads inside Japanese-occupied Korea, which gave the Japanese great anxiety, and before the Russians could finish the railroad, Japan declared war on February 8, 1904, beginning the Russo-Japanese War, which lasted from February 8, 1904 to September 5, 1905. War attacks began right away. On the night that the war was declared, Admiral Togo and his fleet surprise attacked the Russian fleet. The attack was carried out 3 hours before Tsar Nicholas II got the message that the war was declared. In defense to Russia's denunciation in response to the surprise attack, Japan mentioned that Russia did the same thing towards Sweden in 1809 without a declaration of war. China was in favor of Japan and told Japan that it would give military support, but Japan refused. Instead, China sent Japanese troops food and alcohol. The native Manchurians were hired by both sides to fight for them. There were 16 battles in the one-year conflict, in which 4 of the battles were indecisive, and the rest were wins for Japan. The ships remaining tried to get out of port in the summer of 1904, and Japanese ships intercepted them, and the Battle of the Yellow Sea, August 10, 1904, commenced, in which another flagship for Russia, Tsarevich, was badly damaged and the rest of the Russian ships retreated back into harbor in the Korean peninsula. Japan was equally successful on land, and showed this at the Battle of Yaeyong, August 25 to September 5. Initially, the Japanese forces were defeated, but over time eventually, the Russian fleet in Asia was destroyed by Japanese forces in the Siege of Port Arthur, July 30, 1904 January 2, 1905. Japan took Port Arthur on January 2, which was a strategic port that the Russians leased from China. By the February of 1904, the Russian fleet was crippled and Russia's most charismatic commander, Admiral Stepan Makarov, was killed aboard his flagship when it was blown up by a mine in April of 1904. The Russians attempted to send in the Baltic fleet from the west, and after a long voyage, they finally got to the east, but were met with the Japanese fleet, and the Baltic fleet was destroyed in the Battle of Tsushima in May 1905. Post-war, after Russia's defeat in the Battle of Tsushima in 1905, Russia and Japan was ready to make peace, for both of the nations lost around 50,000 deaths without counting the several that were injured and the civilians that were killed. President Theodore Roosevelt served as the mediator at the peace conference which was held in Portsmouth, which was held from August 9 to September 5, 1905. The Treaty of Portsmouth stated that Japan would gain control of Port Arthur, the South Manchurian railroads which lead to Port Arthur, and half of the Sakhalin Islands. Russia agreed to evacuate southern Manchuria, which China took back, and Korea was recognized as under Japanese rule. Significance: there were many significance of the Russo-Japanese War, one being the usage of many new technologies that were invented thanks to the Industrial Revolution, such as rapid-firing artillery, machine guns, accurate carbine rifles, as well as new naval technologies such as the dreadnoughts. Many of these new weapons would be used in World War I and World War II. Another example is the fact that this was the first war in which an Asian country beat an European country in a war. This went to show that Russia wasn't very strong as previously thought, and made the Tsars even less popular than they were before. Because Japan was the first country to beat an European country, Japan was recognized as the major regional power and to some extent, the main Asian power in Asia, which set a course for rapid expansion and eventually its downfall in World War II. A good synthesis for the Russo-Japanese War is the Protestant Reformation, because everybody thought that Catholicism and the Catholic Church was powerful, as they thought for Russia during the war, but the Protestants successfully made their religions dominant in Europe despite having to go against Catholicism, as Japan beat out the more powerful opponent and established their domain in Asia.